Welcome to the latest history revision video. This one looks at how Hitler established the dictatorship in Germany between 1933 and 1934. We spent a lot of time looking at and preparing questions on how Hitler became Chancellor, but the next period of how he gets from taking over a democracy and turning it into a dictatorship in a very short period of time is another separate question, and it does require you to learn a series of dates and events. Try really hard to learn the dates. Don't do what I do and make them up. Check them. I've checked them for this video, so this time the dates are real. As we know, on the 30th of January 1933, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany, and at that point Germany was a democracy. On the 17th of February 1933, the local police were ordered to cooperate with the SA and the SS. One of Hitler's first appointments as Chancellor was to make Hermann Göring Minister of the Interior. This gave Göring complete control of, amongst many other things, the police. He brought the SA and the SS in to work alongside the police. Technically, they had no legal authority. They were, in fact, private armies. But Göring was giving them power to not only support the police, but even make decisions for them. This was illegal, but nobody challenged Hitler over it. And what you need to look out for in this section are mistakes. Events and incidents when people, had they acted differently, might have changed things. On the 27th of February 1933, the Reichstag fire took place. And the Reichstag is the German parliament. It was completely destroyed by a deliberate act of arson. A young Dutch communist with learning difficulties called Marinus van der Lubbe was arrested at the scene. He was carrying petrol and matches. He confessed to the crime and was later executed. Now there is some doubt as to the extent of van der Lubbe's guilt. Somebody must have helped him gain access to the building. He'd been arrested by the SA several days before because they overheard him boasting that he was going to burn down the Reichstag. So they arrested him, interviewed him, and then surprisingly released him. Hitler certainly capitalised on the event. He declared that it was an outrageous terrorist attack, which it was, and the beginning of a communist revolution, which it wasn't. Van der Lubbe was a communist. He was acting entirely alone. He had no links at all with the German Communist Party. The German Communist Party did not have a plan to take over Germany in 1933. They were not planning it at all. We say it often. There's a big difference between the truth and what people believe is the truth. People are ready to believe the communists are about to take over Germany, or at least to try. And what Hitler's doing, aptly, is pouring petrol on that fear. He's able to create a sense of panic and emergency in Germany. The Reichstag fire is Germany's 9/11. It's the equivalent of that level of terrorist attack. Nobody dies, but this is an attack on a symbol of German democracy. On the very next day, you get the next event, the 28th of February 1933, the emergency decree. As a direct consequence of the fire, President Hindenburg issued an emergency decree. Hitler had requested this. This decree allowed the police to arrest all suspects and hold them without trial. Hitler now has the power to arrest anyone he wants to. Anyone that he suspects might have been involved in a communist plot, which didn't exist. Hitler could take over all regional governments as well if he wanted to. Now immediately he's going to use these to round up every member of the Communist Party he can find. The next event is the 5th of March 1933, the elections to the Reichstag. Hitler had been appointed Chancellor by Hindenburg. Now what he wants to do is to have a final push to see if he can get the Nazi Party over 51%. That would give them complete control of the Reichstag. The events following the Reichstag fire give him the ability and the opportunity to use greater power than ever to influence the election. The Reichstag fire had discredited the main opponents in the election, the Communist Party. The Nazis were very good to use the media, in particular the radio, to campaign. And there is evidence of open intimidation by the police, the SA and the SS of opponents of the Nazi Party. In those elections, the Nazis won 52% of the vote. That gives them an overall majority in the Reichstag and gives Hitler huge power. On the 13th of March 1933, Joseph Goebbels became Minister of Propaganda. Goebbels had been in charge of all Nazi publicity. This new role gave him control of all the media, and he could begin to censor opposition newspapers and books. On the 24th of March 1933, the Enabling Act was passed. This is probably the single most important event in moving Germany towards a dictatorship. This was the first full meeting of the Reichstag since the elections and since the fire. It was held in the Kroll Opera House, which was about 200 metres along the road past the ruined Reichstag building. The delegates had to walk past the burned-out Reichstag building on the way to the meeting. So they would arrive in this opera house with the smell of smoke and burnt building in their nose. The whole event was orchestrated and dominated by the Nazi Party. The swastika was everywhere. The SA and the SS are standing in the aisles of L throughout this theatre, making sure that everything is focused on Hitler. When he walked onto the stage to take his place in front of the Reichstag group for the first time, there was tremendous applause. And then he stood in absolute silence. Eventually he demanded, not asked, demanded that he be given an Enabling Act. This would allow him to make laws without consulting the Reichstag or involving the President. He insisted this was a temporary measure. He insisted that Germany was under huge threat from the Communist Party, that a revolution was about to sweep across Germany, and the only way in which the Nazi Party could help save Germany was by taking this drastic action. Intimidated by the Nazis, the Reichstag voted yes, and voted themselves out of existence. This gave Hitler all the legal powers of a dictator. On the 7th of April 1933, the purging of the called alien elements began. All parts of the civil service, courts and legal system and education were purged of alien elements. This means that anybody who opposes the Nazi Party openly is sacked. The other group that are also removed from their positions are Jews. On the 2nd of May 1933, the German Labour Front, the DAF, was created. All German workers were forced to join the DAF. This was led by Dr. Robert Ley. This organisation kept strict control of workers. They couldn't strike for better pay or conditions or join trade unions. In some areas, workers were told where to work. And this did go a long way towards reducing unemployment, and the German Labour